Hello, YouTube. Welcome to Matter of Opinion. I'm Walls P.
It's your boy Ray the Dawn.
And today we're going to talk about the Breonna Taylor situation. Was the police right in their actions, or were they wrong in their actions? That's what we're going to discuss today. So to me, it was definitely an injustice of the shooting. Number one, if you're going into a situation that you're going to perform a warrant and everything like that, especially right now with this Black Lives Matter movement, why would you walk with no body cam?
Well, to counteract your statement right there, not every police department can afford body cams for all their cops. I mean, it's a system that's implemented, yes, but it also costs money. You know what I'm saying? And being that a lot of police departments, their budget doesn't normally fit the amount of officers they have. Not every police officer can have a body cam. It's a lot of cases like that. If you look at even to this day, the California Highway Patrol, not all of their officers have body cam.
That's understandable. But if you're going to do a raid for some quote unquote bad area, drug infested area, you pretty much know like what's going on with social injustice. I think you would try to make sure you go with a body cam, something to protect yourself.
Right.
You know,
right.
That's the way I looking at it logically, because that's what I would do.
Looking at it logically that way, yes, but you have to also understand that each body cam, when it's purchased, it's assigned to a specific officer. It's not like they can just be like, okay, here, you can use this body cam for today. No, it doesn't work that way. It's assigned to a specific officer, and it has a serial number in the back of it. So most people don't realize that serial number links to that officer. So if anything goes wrong with that body cam, that officer is to blame.
So unless they tell me that his body cam was broke or missing or whatever, you should have had on your body cam. Like, and I understand, yeah, you saying that, you know, with funding and stuff like that, but I don't know. Me personally, if I'm walking into a place where I know it's violence and all chaotic, I'm gonna try my best to have a body cam. Now, if you have a no-knock warrant, why would you even say that you announced yourself? Like you're battering, like you have a no-knock warrant. So if you have a no-knock warrant, there's absolutely no reason for you to announce yourself, because that means you could just go in there, bang, and do whatever.
And that's correct. You know, nowadays policing, and this goes back to police funding as well, because the training is lacking. But nowadays, when they have no knock warrants, most cops, they try to give people the chance to come out and stuff and not put up resistance or whatever. So they might announce themselves, but once again, that goes back to the police funding and training, because if they had better training, they would know and be trained more so to just go about the no-knock warrant and everything like that.
I hear you, but it would have been more of a compelling argument if you said, look, 12 o'clock at night, whatever time, 12, 1 in the morning, whatever, so they're probably asleep, so even if you did knock or whatever, they're not going to hear you. That's fine and dandy. But for the police report, they literally said they knocked first and that they announced who they were. But if you have a no-knock warrant, I guess I'm trying to, like, why would you knock? And number one, you had the battering ram, like ramming yourself, like trying to ram yourself in.
Well, you have to look at it this way, in this perspective. In the action of them using the body ram, and I've seen that police report, they actually said that while they were in the action of it, they were announcing that they were the police. And which is typically the thing to do. Even if you have a no-knock warrant, when you're using the body ram to knock down a door, you still have to announce that you're the cops, as so to let them know, like, hey, we're the police, we're coming in using force or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And there's an actual article, I think it's 16 or 16-C, which states that an officer must announce himself regardless of whatever warrant he has.
You mean to tell me that if I'm using a battering ram, put it like this. If you're outside of my car, right? And I'm trying to talk to you, and I'm pressing on my horn at the same time, and I'm like, yo, Ray, yo, let's go to the club tonight, and I'm constantly honking my horn, beep, 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 as I'm talking. You really gonna hear me?
Well,
like, real talk, are you gonna hear me?
well, you can't compare the two. You can't really compare the two because you're constantly pressing the horn, and the horn has that long audio after sound, whereas the ram, one hit, you can still, they still have to put it back in the position and ram it again. Still have to do that. You know what I'm saying? In between that, you can still hear somebody talk, especially if they're loud enough. Then there are cases where even the SWAT teams that have done raids. Like there's a YouTuber who, I forget his name. He does Fortnite, and he always has his headphones in, and it's always on blast.
Okay.
And if he can hear that, and it was a police raid at his house live. He was doing a live show. YouTube had his headphones in. Fortnite sounds was blasting and everything, and he heard them hit the ram. Say it's the police, hit the ram a second time when he broke down his door. If he could hear that and he had that on, you know what I'm saying? And that's at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
That this raid happened too.
Okay, that's a valid point.
So you know what I'm saying? If a guy can hear that and he has sound muffler headphones and he can still hear that,
okay,
I think it's reasonable cause that you should be able to hear that, you know, and there's no sound.
So hear me out. If you have a no-knock warrant, right, and you have no reason to announce yourself, and you pretty much going in there with the intent to kill, because the way I look at it, it was like kind of the intent to kill. So even if you're knocking and you have a no-knock warrant, what would possess you to announce who you are? Because you're still covered by the no-knock warrant. Just saying, like, hypothetically.
Well, hypothetically, but like I said, there's a police article which states that they still have to announce, even regardless of what type of warrant they're executing. Okay. They still have to announce that they are a form of law enforcement.
All right.
It's the same thing like if the sheriff department comes to get you because you have a warrant, they still have to announce. If say for example a repo person comes, they still have to announce who they are.
So they now get into the house, right?
Right.
And they got shot at. Mr. Walker shot one shot. Now, if me and you was going to rob a bank, so to speak, right? Mm-hmm. And when we're inside the bank, we break in. Everybody, put your hands up, whatever. And the security officer shoots, and you're hit. If you my man's, I'm gonna shoot back, right, and try and pull you into cover.
Correct.
Right? I'm not gonna stand there and just unload insurmountable shots at you. I'm gonna look to basically cover you because you're a man down. So if the cop got shot in the leg, right? Mm-hmm. He got shot in the leg, and they unloaded 32 rounds. I didn't hear nothing about they try and get the cop that was shot into cover. It was just straight 32 rounds that was shot into the house.
Well, this goes back to standard police training for over here in the U.S. Okay. Standard police training dictates that you have to neutralize the threat before going to tend to medical to any fallen officers. Simply because if the threat is still live and active, other officers can get killed.
Okay.
Now, as far as the 32 shots that were fired in the heat of the moment, and you have to realize this, when you have a gun, and this is for anybody that's ever held a gun or wants to hold a gun has weight, and when your adrenaline is kicking and somebody's shooting at you and you have a gun in your hand, you're not thinking about, okay, how many shots am I firing? No, you're thinking about, okay, I need to get this person down to protect myself. You know what I'm saying? And regardless if he shot one shot, you still fired at an armed police officer executing a warrant, which still gives them the right to defend themselves. Just like if somebody came on your property, like say if you owned a house, mm-hmm. you had a permit to have a gun. Okay. And somebody came onto your property illegally, and you gave them a you announced yourself. You was like, hey, it's my property, get off. They still weren't doing it, and then you were like, you still giving them a second warning, and then they start shooting at you. You legally have the right to defend yourself with your gun.
That is a fine point. But here's my thing. You're going to do a raid. You have a no-knock warrant. And if I'm pretty sure, once you look up whoever on your system, I'm pretty sure you would know that Mr. Walker was licensed to have a gun. And number two, I'm pretty sure the officers know that they're in a stand your ground state. If number one, like I said, Mr. Walker said he didn't hear them announce that they were police officers. So if you ram yourself in and you get shot and you're at a stand your ground, once he realized it was the police officers, he stopped shooting. Mm-hmm. So if you have this knowledge that you're in a stand your ground state and you're walking into a situation where it's a drug raid, you have no body cam, And on top of that, with the police report, you literally put that there was no injuries or anything, which Breonna Taylor was shot and basically like fighting for her life or whatever. On top of that, the ambulance that was there, you basically sent them away. Didn't attend to her, not whatsoever, till like a half an hour later. Then that's when you call them back so that they can attend to her. To me, that sounds like deliberately. That sounds like deliberately like bad actions on the police officers. It sounds like bad policing, pretty much.
And that's a fair point. And like I said, that goes back to the police training. Like if you look, prime example, other countries, their police training is a lot more stricter and it's a lot more proficient compared to the police training over here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And that falls on the lawmakers and stuff because you need proper funding for proper police training. But at the same time, regardless enough, people fail to realize that cops are human beings at the end of the day. And as a human being, if somebody just threatened, somebody just shot at you. Realistically, let's think about this. Say you're just a regular person. You have a gun permit, whatever. Somebody just shot at you. Are you gonna A, let them keep shooting at you, or B, shoot back?
I'm gonna shoot back.
Correct. Nobody's thinking about let's save the person that just shot at us. No, they're thinking, okay, what's this guy's problem, whatever, let's look for these drugs, let's do a job or whatever. And that, once again, I do blame the police training because the first thing you are supposed to do normally by law is to ensure that the threat is neutralized and that all parties involved are taken care of, whether they're injured, shot, or whatever. And then you're supposed to do your search or whatever after that. But like I said, that goes back to police training. Police training in the U.S. does suck, and I'm not making any excuses for anybody, but it's a fact,
Because here's my take on it. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, there was kids and everything in the house, and you just shot 32 times in the house, like not knowing what's what. You get what I'm saying? So that's the thing that I'm looking at. Like any type of situation where a shot is fired, what happened to suppression fire? And to make sure there's no hostages or anything inside of the house, so to speak.
Well. Once again, they were going off of the raid warrant, and the raid warrant listed that house as a drug stash house.
Exactly my point. So yo, if you run into a drug house, usually guys got tons of money sitting there, guns everywhere. Like yo, who this? Like, you get what I'm saying? So if you're running into a drug house, like. You mean to tell me you can't expect, like, I understand, like, yeah, there's going to be drug dealers and everything like that. You're running into a drug house. But who's to say there's not innocent children in there?
Right. But the mindset of the cops going in, you have to understand is like, okay, I'm going to do this raid. They get to the raid location, break down the door, and then the first thing they get is shot at. They're thinking, okay, it's a bunch of drug dealers in here. Let's just neutralize the threat and then do the whole recovery and stuff. So, in that essence, 32 shots, and it's not just from one officer, it's from multiple officers.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that, you know what I'm saying? Because you have to understand when you're doing a raid, especially in the SWAT team, if one SWAT officer is getting shot at, the rest of them are going to shoot at you to try to neutralize you because you are the threat.
Here's my point, though. Breonna Taylor was unarmed, and she got killed, right?
Right.
But there was no charges against her.
Against the officers.
Against the officers. But meanwhile, they shot a wall, and one of the cops got prosecuted for shooting a wall. Well, so you get what I'm saying?
I'm gonna explain why there will be putting charges against the officer for Breonna Taylor's murder, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because they were conducting a raid. Raids happen, people get shot at. It's a known fact. Okay. 2, they were shot at. They responded with counterfire or shooting back to neutralize the threat. And in that aspect, in the court of law, that's seen as them carrying out their duties, regardless of, who got shot or whatever. And it's a tragedy. It is a tragedy that she got shot. But in a court of law, the law sees them as carrying out their duties under the line of fire. So you have to understand that. You have to understand that aspect. It's tragic, wrong place, wrong time, and all of that. But at the end of the day, the gunshot response that he gave is what set off all of the other gunshots.
Yeah, I get it. Because if he would have never shot, then
correct.
Who knows what would have happened? Like, it probably would have been, hey, we're here to raid and yada yada, and keep it moving. Everything would have been fine and dandy.
Exactly.
Right.
So you can't fully blame the officers. You have to take accountable for the actions of her boyfriend.
Yeah, every action there's a reaction.
Correct.
But for me though, my final take on it is pretty much I understand they were shot at, but if you're a professional, then you should take that into consideration. And I know it's not the same field, whatever, it's comparing apples to oranges, because it's like saying if you get hit with a DUI and you got a regular license,
right,
you're gonna get a harsh penalty. Me as a CDL driver, if I get a DUI, I'm gonna get a maximum, a much harsher pen. Like whatever the maximum is, they're gonna give me the maximum penalty because they're like, you're a licensed, trained driver. You have a CDL, so you're supposed to know better.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? So if you're trained to handle these type of situations, I understand fear can kick in, whatever. But like I said, if there was an innocent child in the house or whatever the case may be, you also got to take into consideration that's what you're trained for as a law officer. You're like suppression fire, whatever the case may be. Suppression fire, like I guess suppression fire and hey, we're officers, whatever, yada yada. Drop your weapon, something along those lines. And then when you factor in, you're lying on the police report saying there was no injuries, you didn't get Breonna Taylor attended to, like all of that stuff matters. So yes, I can understand that you was under fire, so you took action into your hands. But what about the stuff that happened afterwards? The stuff that happened afterwards, to me, tells me you basically was going in to kill. So that's the way I look at it. Because if it was like, oh my gosh, we hit an innocent bystander, call the medics. Yeah, we gotta attend to our officer, but call the medics for her. She's you get what I'm saying? So those are things that also should be held into, like, should have been done.
And I agree with you. I agree with you to a certain extent. These officers are young when they go into the field. If you look at the officers in the case, a majority of them are young. A majority of them are young. True. They don't have any real combat or field experience to know any better. You get what I'm saying? Like, they've been on maybe 1 or 2 raids. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you have to factor that into your equation, because when you're young and you're new to the job and everything, you're trying to do the best that you can. As far as if there was an innocent bystander, yes, the innocent bystander would have probably got hit. But they should have called for an ambulance, and I'll give you that one. They should have called for the ambulance to come right away and tend to her and stuff. There's nothing really much I can say about the officer's actions, but most people fail to realize, like, when you are just exiting a gunfight, and especially if it's your first, or it's a really hectic gunfight scene, you need a moment to calm down. You need a few minutes to catch yourself, to evaluate everything that just happened to you. It's not like, oh my God, bang, 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 they have police training. No, because a lot of these cops are fresh, and they've never shot at somebody, never, been in a gunfire. For them to experience that, it's like kind of like if I was to throw you in war, and then I was like, here's a gun. We trained you how to do this, how to load it, how to everything. Now go fight my war. And then you go into the war, and you're facing the enemy, and the enemy is shooting at you, and you finally kill him. But then you're like, damn, your moral compass is like, it's your first time that you've ever, experienced that. So it's like, people have to take that into consideration as well. But regardless of that circumstance, of that gunfight PTSD, your job as an officer is still to call for medical assistance if somebody was hurt, and to have that in a report. So that is where the police system has failed, and that goes back to the training. The training here sucks. It does, especially for new officers. It sucks because their combat training is okay, but they only focus on their firearms and how to detain the suspect, but not how to approach the certain situations.
And see, for me, that goes into, even though their training sucks, I don't think stuff is applied to actually help them fulfill their duties from what they were trained.
Right.
The laws are set, because even when you look at the when they was interviewing the officers. Number one, they had their friend who was basically doing the interview. So it's kind of like if you have your, I wouldn't say your cousin, but if you have somebody who like you've been good friends with for the last 5-10 years or so, right? Mm-hmm. And the police, like, they come to you and say, hey, basically build up a case onto your friend.
Right.
Now, with you building this case or whatever onto your friend, you're not going to be held accountable as far as like if you feel you did the job to your fullest capability. So even if you do a half-assed job, so to speak, or something like that, you're not held accountable. That's basically what's going on. And the reason why I say that is because when they was doing the interview process with these officers, they was basically coaching them through the questions. Like literally coaching them, walking them through the step. Like, yeah, so when he shot the gun, you basically felt like you needed to shoot back, right? Not sit down, tell me exactly what happened. They basically coached them through everything.
And that goes back to, like I said, they're new officers. And because they don't want them to have an L or for them to have a bad record off bat, especially because they're new and it's the first time they've experienced that. You know what I'm saying?
But what happens to the moral compass though? Because basically what that's telling me is we're gonna save your cheeks at the expense of somebody else's life.
And that goes back to, you know, the policing department and the law itself. The law itself is created to help officers in certain cases.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not really created for the people, and that's simply because we as the people, we don't go out and we don't voice our opinion when laws are being made. You know, at the end of the day, you know, we can hate the police as much as we want, but unless we have laws and articles that are for the people and you know, better police training and better funding for body cams and stuff, then, you know.
My final take on the matter is I'm not really holding the police to the fire for what they did, because at the end of the day, they were shot at, and nobody knows how they're going to react in that situation. But I guess after this debate, what it makes me basically think about is to be mad at the system that allows, you know, falsifying police reports and, you know, stuff like that. That system to me is broken. As far as like the actions the cops did, I can't fault them for that, because think about it. Somebody shoot at you, how are you going to react? You don't know. You can say, I would react this way, but once the time comes, it's just like saying you'd be like, oh, if I win the lottery, I'm going to donate and do all this. As soon as you win that money, your whole plan changes. So that, I'm not going to really get on the police officers for that. It's their actions afterwards and the system that allows it to happen with no consequence.
And to add on to that, you know, like I said, a lot of these lawmakers and stuff are people that you voted for, or people that you were just like, hey, he's still in office, let's just vote for him. You get what I'm saying? And you can't be mad when those laws that they pass are not for you. You can't be mad because you left them in there. Yeah. You had opportunities for fresh blood to go in there, you left them in there.
Yep.
The system, the way the system is designed, it is designed to be for the rich and the police. It's a sad system, and I do believe at least the officer whose bullet actually hit her, or the officers whose bullets actually hit her, should at least face accidental manslaughter, or some form of manslaughter in the first degree, or second or third degree. Either or, like they should face manslaughter, because regardless enough, even if they were conducting a raid, they were still trained on police tactics, police hand-to-hand combat, police gun
like
training,
suppressing, like that's why I say suppression fire or
police gun training. And I have a friend who's a cop, and I go to the gun range with him all the time with his cop buddies. And trust me when I tell you, they know how to shoot. You get what I'm saying? They have sufficient training, and you know, like I said, it takes a lot, you know, in a heated situation, because your adrenaline is pumping and stuff, you know, when you're in a situation like that. But at the same time, they need to receive adequate training to respond, because at the end of the day, without us, the public, they don't have a job. They don't have a job. Like the police department calls everybody, and you know they call you too. They call everybody for donations every single year. If all these people stop donating money, a lot of people just stop paying taxes in general. Like, imagine if all of the U.S. just stopped paying taxes. All these police officers don't have a job.
Yeah. Just a lot of government and everything. That's a government shutdown, pretty much.
And you know what's really crazy? The IRS is not even listed as a government agency. It's listed as a business. Not a government business, just a regular business. You know why that is? Because it was never a government agency before. The IRS was originally a business, which turned into a government agency because the government decided, hey, let's just take money out of these people. So that's some fun fact for you. You know, you guys can go Google that. You know, that's my take on it. You know.
So I let you guys decide. You know, drop some comments what you think on the situation. You could also comment who caught the L. Was it me? Was it Ray? Don't forget to subscribe, share it amongst your friends, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Peace.
Peace.
Time for me to hold it down. Time for me to break it down. Y'all cats don't wanna see me. Y'all better mind your peace.